broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I think you can. My name is Miranda. I'm obviously with the Weather Service here in Pittsburgh. Hold on a second. Okay, Fred can. Thank you, Fred. With the Weather Service in Pittsburgh, I'm on with Fred today. We're going to be talking briefly about our severe weather threat today, tomorrow, and then we're also going to be transitioning to discussing potential impacts associated with Hurricane Laura, which obviously, if you're following Laura, it's a massive storm, made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane last night, and it'll progress rather quickly up the Mississippi River Valley. I do think, though, we're already starting to see impacts associated with Laura, and I will get to that here in a moment. I'll give it about 30 more seconds to see if anybody else wants to join us. Otherwise, I just want to also give a special thanks to Stephen Cropper for your interest in wanting to maybe have a webinar today with respect to our active weather pattern. It's hard for me sometimes. I've been working the PM shift the last couple of days, so I was warning on Tuesday, so sometimes it's hard to switch gears like this. So I do appreciate, though, your interest. And if anybody on the call ever wants or requests a webinar or would like additional information, I know Fred and I are always happy to accommodate. With that, I will start to the next slide here. This is the SPC Outlook for today. You can see the area of slight risk extends across a large part of the northern tier of the country. It's going to follow the extent of a cold front. You can also see that we are, just based on the drawing, kind of the linear west to east expansion, we are under a west-northwest flow regime across our region, and we've got several shortwave activity that'll be progressing through the flow that'll bring us the potential for severe weather. Notice over to the right of the screen, the tornado, wind, and hail risks. We are in the game for all three potential hazards, but you can also see, though, the further north and east you go into eastern and northern Pennsylvania, and especially southern New York, Long Island area, they have a better chance of severe weather today just based on the parameters, and I'll look at that here in a minute as well. Here's our 12Z sounding out of Pittsburgh this morning. Our convective temperature being 83 degrees, we should have no problem meeting that and exceeding that. You can also see there's really not a substantial inversion closer to the surface here. So that's not really a question. We've got plenty of low-level moisture also evident with our dew point temperature up through 750 millibar, pretty sufficient moisture at low levels. That's always an ingredient that we need for thunderstorm development. Decape values as of this morning are at 670 joules per kilogram. I am noting this feature here, this what we call theta E minimum, or our maximum area of dry air aloft. That's right around 500 millibars, probably closer to 20,000 feet, give or take. So when we're watching radar this afternoon, we'll be watching for strong cores, 50 dBz and higher, to be around that region before we start considering severe potential impacts with respect to decape and downburst wind. Though looking at this sounding, I would say the majority of the potential for hazard would be associated with downburst wind and damaging wind, just given the wind field, which is fairly strong west-northwest flow, and then our available dry air, which models suggest will remain in place through the duration of today. I did discuss the notable low-level moisture. We've got kind of a southwest surface wind that'll start to advect in more moisture, actually more moisture associated with Laura. I'm also seeing these mid-level lapse rates, low and mid-level lapse rates, more so mid. They're relatively poor compared to even what we saw on Tuesday. So this will hamper our updraft strength later this afternoon. And in my opinion, I feel that this will be the main feature to watch to see how fast these updrafts can develop with respect to the available shear, which would then go on to cause more organized severe convection. And I do think that the warming of the mid-levels is associated with amplifying ridging associated with Laura that's still down in the Mississippi River Valley, but it's helping to almost amplify that southern or southeastern ridge that we've been on the northern fringe of these last couple days. So if we compare today's 12Z sounding on the left to what we saw Tuesday, where we had kind of a slam dunk severe weather event, we talked about the elevated mix level, the EML, that was more prevalent across the region on Tuesday. Notice our CAPE values were higher, so we had steeper lapse rates throughout the entire column versus today, where again, my mid-level lapse rates are a little bit poorer. We've got warmer air helping to hamper that buoyancy and that updraft velocity. Note though, we do have the low level moisture evident and we've got the dry air in place. And we also have a similar wind field, though I do believe our shear today is a little bit less than what we saw last Tuesday. Here's the recent satellite imagery. This is showing just how massive Laura is with respect to basically engulfing all of Louisiana and north into Arkansas. And here's Pennsylvania and Ohio right up here as the sun comes up. Here's our main feature that we'll be watching later on today, the cold front. You can also see some cloud cover extending as far west as Iowa. So we've got ridging amplification with Laura across the southeastern portion of the country, with meeting this west-northwest cooler, drier air across the northern tier of the country, which is why we remain in the slight risk for severe weather across Ohio and into Pennsylvania and points north. One feature I will suggest, if you don't have it in your arsenal tool set, is to take this link that I have. This is the shortwave infrared band. You can track shortwave activity. A lot of times we use this to see when the next shortwave will be coming through. In west-northwest flow, it tends to be an active pattern. So you can look at this and you can refer to maybe where the next area of instability would be with respect to your area of concern across Ohio and then into Pennsylvania. I also see an increased shortwave activity farther to the south and the west. This is all associated with Laura as well. Recent surface analysis also shows more of a southwesterly wind profile at the surface, so that's helping to affect higher dew point values. This was at 9Z. This morning we had dew point values in the 70s, upper 60s across our region. So again, the low-level moisture will not be a problem today. You can also see a little bit of ridging, like I said, here in our pressure levels. And again, that's associated with Laura as it moves north into the east, and that is helping to hamper some of our updraft velocity later this afternoon. Up-down look from the SPC Mesoanalysis at 300 millibars and then 500 millibars shows our jet support, which is shaded in this darker blue, a little bit stronger to the north and to the east, but nonetheless, we are seeing the effects of mid-level jet support. So the forcing for ascent is there, especially at the mid-levels, which is why I also think northeastern portions of the forecast area, Du Bois, north of I-80, have a better chance at organized severe weather than points southwestward, let's say Zanesville and those regions. So, but you can see west-northwest flow throughout, pretty uniform, and then just little ripples, as we call them, in the flow that'll help trigger convection later this afternoon, and especially associated with the cold front as that moves through. DCAPE, or dry air availability at mid to upper levels, is not a problem today. On the order of 1,200 joules per kilogram, maybe even slightly higher, north and east. This is valid at 19Z, so this would be, mid or early to mid afternoon period. So again, the main hazard being downburst wind with any organized severe thunderstorm or organized convection that can develop. And then over to the right here, this is my mid-level lapse rates. This was current. When you start to see these green lines and then even these orange lines, those indicate better lapse rates in terms of steeper lapse rates to support accelerated updrafts. Note that they are a little bit stronger across north, or they're a little bit more unstable across northeastern and central portions of the forecast area in Pennsylvania, and a little less impressive across eastern Ohio. And then if we look at our effective shear today, it is more situated across extreme northern parts of our forecast area, and especially northward, but we still do have the effects of some organized convection here, on the order of 25 to 30 knots. And again, that's mainly confined to portions of I-80 and northward. So that's really where I'm going to be looking today, although with the dry air availability everywhere, if you do get a stronger thunderstorm, you will want to watch for that potential for downburst wind. And for those who are really interested in weather and understand it well and like to follow this, SPC Mesoanalysis has the Balk-Richardson number. This will be something that you'll want to watch for today as well, because what it does is it shows you the balance between your shear associated with your instability and your updraft strength. So when you see those pink lines and red lines, that's where you have the potential for more organized, better convection leading to severe thunderstorms. So as the day progresses, I would expect a lot of that to start to translate to the north and to the east, which would then support the more stronger concerns or severe concerns north of our forecast area where that enhanced risk would be. Quickly, I'll just show soundings between the HRRR and the NAM 3 kilometer. This is centered over Allegheny County. I thought that was a good midpoint to where the more severe impact potentially would be to the north and to the east, and then less severe potential impact to the south and to the west of the forecast area. And you can see the HRRR versus the NAM, the influence of what increased dew point values does, because, you know, as we've been saying with these webinars, the NAM 3 kilometer tends to like to show a little bit more moisture versus the other models, and you can see what the impacts that is to our Cape value. So this is the HRRR and this is the NAM 3 kilometer. You can see the difference in our instability profiles, both indicating that dry air. So again, that's kind of our slam dunk if we see severe potential start to develop. And also similar wind profiles as well. If you were to get a more southward moving cell, a discrete cell ahead of this main kind of multi-cluster line that comes through associated with the cold front later this afternoon, you could be under the gun for the potential for tornadic development. But again, based on what these photographs are telling me, which are mostly straight line photographs, which makes sense given our wind profile and the how the cold front will pass through. It's kind of west to east oriented. If you were to get a southward moving cell, discrete cell, that's when you would want to watch for the potential for rotation associated with tornadogenesis. But again, that's kind of a lesser concern, as is hail. I said on my 12Z sounding earlier, I should have noted that, but it is a couple slides ago, we would need to get strong cores, solid 50 dBz cores over about 34,000 feet, which is warmer than where we were Tuesday. So you can tell the effects of Laura are helping to sort of warm our mid-levels, which is helping again to hamper our updraft velocity. But nonetheless, the severe weather risk remains, and here are the HREF members to show where each member expects convection to be. This is valid at 18Z this afternoon. Most obviously showing thunderstorms developing along the cold front across the Great Lakes, and also starting to see the impacts of shortwave activity across the from a southern stream shortwave associated with Laura, bringing some scattered showers and thunderstorms across southern portions of the forecast area. So east central and southern Ohio into northern West Virginia as well. So again, looking at an active day today, I think, as I mentioned, the main threat will be the downburst potential. We could see some hail, but we'd have to get above 34,000 feet with the stronger 50 dBz and higher cores. And if we were to see a southward moving discrete cell ahead of the cold front, that would be a main concern for the potential for some rotation, tapping into the streamwise vorticity, which would then lead to the potential for tornado development. Quickly looking at Friday, you can see we're under marginal risk for much of the area, slight risk across east central Ohio. Tornado threats not really there tomorrow. Wind threat remains. We'll have a little bit, the continued dry air eroding, but it'll still be there tomorrow. And then hail threat is pretty minimal as well. And you can see that's because if we look quickly just at the GFS sounding, this is across eastern Ohio. So I was trying to find a sample of a region that would maybe be more influenced by Laura as it moves up the Mississippi River Valley. And you can see a big difference here. We have higher moisture content, which leads to higher precipitable water, 1.83 inches, which is much higher than what we're seeing today. Most likely warmer freezing level, or a higher freezing level, I should say, just overall warming of the column. So our hail threat is pretty diminished there. Also, we have reduced shear tomorrow as well. So my, effective shear and my 0 to 1, 0 to 3, a little bit less than what we're seeing today. So overall, the shear is looking weaker tomorrow. And then also with the increased moisture content, which would lead obviously to reduced decape and reduced dry air aloft. So our downburst potential is a little bit less tomorrow. So with tomorrow, I would anticipate convection if it does get moving, and it will have a mechanism to develop, and that will be along a quasi-stationary boundary. So that cold front that comes through today becomes parallel with the upper flow and stalls. So it will stall across our region overnight into tomorrow, and then serve as a mechanism for additional thunderstorm development tomorrow. So tomorrow will be more of a heavier rain threat, and Fred can get into this in a minute with respect to the impacts of Laura. So with that, and speaking of Fred, I'm just going to, you guys look at this picture, which came out of, the Lake Charles office with the at the Weather Service. One of our forecasters actually worked there and posted those pictures just recently to Facebook, and I thought they were just amazing because it shows what's left of the radar there at the office. And luckily, all the employees, and I know Fred, you can talk more to this, they were able to evacuate, and Brownsville, NWS Brownsville office is actually assuming all of the operational duties for them while they could evacuate and take care of their families. But I thought that was a pretty impressive picture. And Fred, if you can hear me, I've unmuted you, and you can take it from here.
Okay, thanks, Miranda. Yeah, this is the, just get back to this radar image. So this is the second radar the Weather Service has lost due to a hurricane. We lost our San Juan radar with, I believe it was Hurricane Maria 2 years ago, when that was a devastating high-end Cat 4, low-end Cat 5 that went across the island. And it took about almost 9 months to 12 months to get that back. Now, there's challenges getting to that radar given, the ocean and transporting stuff down there. So we'll see, but this is going to be down for a while down there in Southwest Louisiana. So we'll focus on Hurricane Laura. So that's kind of like the big story locally. Again, the image on the left is the Weather Prediction Center's excessive rainfall outlook. So again, the elevated risk pretty much from Wheeling up towards through Pittsburgh, and then over towards Indiana and points south into Morgantown and Oakland, Maryland, has the best chance of seeing potential rainfall that could exceed flash flood guidance. Again, a slight risk is a low risk, 10 to 20%, but again, the threat's out there. The image on the right shows the Hurricane Center's forecast, and you can see most of the rain is confined across West Virginia, where 2 to 4 inches is expected, across much of eastern Ohio, western Maryland, and southwestern Pennsylvania. We're expecting 1 to 2 inches of rainfall as this moves through Friday night through Saturday night, usually a 24-hour window to get this rain through here. So we'll go to the next slide. So again, some of the historical perspective of hurricanes. So I have this list here. So again, Laura, made landfall as a high-end Category 4. Hurricane Center will do a verification on those wind speeds. So right now it will be the, as it stands now, preliminary, the third strongest hurricane to make landfall in the United States since 1970. And then on the images on the right-hand side, so this is Rita. So this is the last major hurricane to hit Southwest Louisiana. So I just threw that on there because people, kind of look back to previous hurricanes and what was their track. So Rita took a track very similar, made landfall just between Lake Charles and Port Arthur, and moved north through Arkansas, then kind of recurved into Indiana before weakening. Of course, Laura is going to kind of go up this way and kind of beeline due east across Virginia and North Carolina. Of course, the Hurricane Center has your information for the track. I didn't include that in this presentation, but again, right now, the only part of our area that's in the cone of uncertainty is northern West Virginia. So again, that's where we're focused on the heavy rainfall. Then just to give you an idea, this time of year where hurricanes form, where they track, again, the ones that come in across the Gulf, again, most of the time they come up here and they recurve to our region, as you can notice by these light lines here that come in the Gulf and come up our direction. Again, this is a period of time from 1851 to 2015. So we'll go to the next slide. So again, a river forecast. The image on the left is our forecast using our ensembles, and it goes out 7 days. And so this is kind of a traffic light approach. So green is good. Yellow means it's going to action. Orange means minor flood. Red means major flood. So again, right now we're not forecasting any of our river forecast points to go above action stage. The reason being are the images on the right. So this is the USGS stream flow analysis. As you can see, most of our area. The green means pretty much right where they should be. Yellow means 25 to 50% of average, and the red means 10 to 25% flow. So again, much of southwestern PA, again, we're below our normal flow river heights. If you go into West Virginia with the recent thunderstorms in eastern Ohio, they're right around average. But again, we can hold a lot of water. A lot of the rain that's going to fall across West Virginia will be south of Tiger Dam, which will keep a lot of the rainfall out of the Mon Basin, which is good news for us and also the Cheat as well. So we'll go to the next slide. So this is the drought update. So the drought update got released today. And the image on the right is the current image. You can see a D1 drought, moderate drought for much of our region. And, again, it's expanded in area, and it's expanded in terms of the D0 yellow shading has expanded as well. The image on the left is done by NOAA, and it's the precip that is needed to eradicate the drought. So water restrictions are in place across much of central Pennsylvania and parts of northwest Pennsylvania. Haven't heard any in West Virginia, Ohio, or Maryland. But the shading in Pennsylvania, the dark brown across central PA, and the light brown across northwestern PA. If you go to the link below the image, that's where you can mouse over and see how much rainfall is needed to eradicate the drought. So in the darker brown shading across central Pennsylvania, it's about 7 to 8 inches of rainfall is needed to eradicate the drought, and then it's about 5 to 6 inches in northwestern Pennsylvania. Now, you might say, okay, well, that might bring our rainfall totals back to average, but this is mostly to kind of help the wells and get them replenished with water. So right now, again, we're only aware of one township that has water restrictions, that has a water buffalo set up. But again, we're kind of continuing to monitoring that. I know there's parts of central Pennsylvania that have water restrictions in place now, but in terms of our region, southwestern Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio, and northern West Virginia and western Maryland, we're not aware. We are only aware of one place that has a restriction. We have some enhanced burn bans in effect. But again, if you hear this stuff, let us know. We try to put that in our weekly drought statement, which goes out under the pill as DGTPBZ. Usually goes out on Thursdays and Fridays. Again, this is the first year we've issued one of those since 2012. So go to the next slide. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it, Fred.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. So you want to stop recording and we'll just take any questions.